so far, and a few more people are probably going to be joining in, but I can go ahead and get everything kicked off. My name's Jared Wassinger. I'm the assistant to the city manager for the city of Manhattan. A lot of you have gotten some emails from me over the last month. I want to first off just give my appreciation to everyone who applied to be on this committee, commit time over the next 8 months to serving the city and the community with this community project committee for the strategic plan. It's quite an endeavor that we're embarking on. You know, we've never really done a strategic plan at this level for the city of Manhattan, and community input, community feedback, and hearing the voice of our residents is going to be key for this process. So I really do want to first off just commend you all for applying and making the commitment to this group. It's been a pretty quick first couple months. We started the process in October and went through a request for proposals and qualifications and received a lot of interest. Over 13 firms applied to do the strategic plan with the city of Manhattan. We narrowed it down to about 4 in November and did interviews and selected Planning Next. Out of Columbus, Ohio, we have Jamie, Sarah, and Cyril here with us tonight that is going to be really leading this discussion. But we went through that and brought that to the City Commission, and they approved our contract with them on January 5th. And as you all know, the process that started in December, where we, to get this show on the road, we really wanted to create this community project committee to represent the public throughout this process. And the City Commission did approve this group on January 19th at their City Commission meeting. One of the reasons I wasn't here right at the beginning is because I ran over to the City Commission room because we're broadcasting this to Channel 3 and our city's website. Just a little background on that. With the pandemic, you know, normally pre-pandemic, this steering committee would have got together at City Hall, and we would be all around a bunch of tables with a microphone and talking to you all and having breakout discussions. We're limited on that capacity in City Hall, and because this board is a committee is appointed by the City Commission, we have to follow our Kansas Open Meetings Act. So because there's limited capacity, we have to broadcast these meetings to the public. In the future, hopefully we can maybe get together at the Hilton Conference Center in a large group, spread out, where, you know, members of the public can come and view this meeting if they so choose. And so hopefully down the road, we'll be able to do that here in the spring and in the summer. But for now, you know, these virtual meetings, we will be broadcasting them. So I do appreciate everyone's understanding and cooperation with that. One of the reasons you'll notice too is the chat feature is disabled on the Zoom. That again is, you know, in a normal meeting, the public would be there to be able to see some of those comments and conversations, but in a virtual setting with a broadcasting, there's someone unable to see that. So we're a little bit limited in that, but I think Jamie, Sarah, and Cyril have some good plans for public engagement. The only other thing I have before we kick things off is I did request folks send a little paragraph bio that we can create a roster of everybody so that we can send that out to the group with a headshot so you can kind of see each other and get to know each other over the next couple months as we meet virtually, most likely. And then we do want to use you know, that headshot to put on our project website so the community could see the community project committee. So if you could send me that over the next week, I would really appreciate it. But with that, I'm gonna let Jamie, Sarah, and Cyril take it away. You all have my contact information if you ever have any questions about the process or want to know a little bit more, just let me know.
Great. Thanks, Jared. I'm Sarah Bongiorno, and I'm a senior project manager with Planning Next. And with me tonight, as Jared mentioned, I've got Jamie Green, our principal. Jamie, want to get a wave? There's Jamie. And Cyril Viola, she's really my right hand on this project. So you'll be hearing from her a little bit later in the meeting. But we're really thrilled to be here with you guys kicking this off. A few housekeeping items. You know, if you're comfortable and have a camera, we'd love to have see your face. And so please feel free to do that if you're comfortable and have a camera. And most of you have really good virtual meeting etiquette so far. You're muted. We will have a chance for discussion, and so you can unmute yourself later when we get into discussion, but keeping those mutes. If you have a question at any point, though, feel free to use the raise your hand function there. I think it's at the bottom of the screen under reactions. You can raise your hand. Jared and Cyril are going to be keeping an eye on that, and they will flag me, and we can make sure we get your questions. So there will be a little bit of presentation, and there'll be some discussion tonight as well. So as Jared said, I really want to thank you all for your interest in this and your time. We know you have a lot of really important things competing for your time and attention these days. So we just really appreciate your commitment to the city and to this project. It's really important that the authentic voice of Manhattan is heard in this process, and you are a critical step in that. So we have an hour and a half agenda planned tonight, and we really try to end our meetings on time. That's always a goal of ours, but that all hinges on this first agenda item, which is introductions. We want to give you guys a chance to introduce yourselves. We wish we could be there, as Jared said, we wish we could be there in person with you and be looking at you around a table together in a room. But because we've got this great technology, we're at least able to virtually be together and see each other. So, but to that effect, we would like to give you guys a chance to introduce yourselves, but we're going to need to be really brief about it. So I am going to just, I have it in gallery view right now. So I'm seeing, I think 20 of you or 18 on the screen. I'm going to slide over, but I'm just going to call on you. And if you could say your name, your full name, and if you'd like to share your affiliation or profession title, you can. And then in one word, share how you're feeling tonight as we come together to kick off this very important planning process for the city. So hopefully if everyone can stick to that one word, we will move through these introductions and get on with our agenda. So and feel free, don't forget to unmute yourself when you introduce yourself. So the first person I see here past our team here is Dustin Dunce. You want to introduce yourself, please?
Dustin Dunce, I'm a counselor at Manhattan High School and excited.
Great, thanks Dustin. And then I see Mickey's iPad. Oh, I think you're still muted. There you go.
Hi. All right. Yeah, I am Mickey Jensen. I am a retired teacher. Hi, Dustin. Good to see there's another teacher here. I taught art at Anthony Middle School, and I am like Dustin. I'm really excited to be a part of this.
Great, thank you. And Mike Crystal?
Hi, I'm Mike Crystal. I'm a retired Army colonel. Been in Manhattan since 1986 off and on, and the one word is anticipation.
Great, thank you. And Josh Brewer.
Hi everyone, I'm Josh Brewer. I'm the Executive Director of the Manhattan Area Habitat for Humanity, and I think my word is I'm really hopeful.
Great, thank you, Josh. And Phil Maddox.
I am Phil Maddox. I'm a retired Army Brigadier General and defense contractor, and my one word is anticipation.
Great. And we've got Linda Tiener.
Yeah, hi, I'm Linda Tiener. I'm the director at UFM Community Learning Center and also the co-director of Program Development and Management for K-State Global Campus, and my word is intrigued.
Oh, great. Thanks, Linda. And Karen Titus.
Hi, I'm Kara Titus. I'm with Kansas Gas Service, and I would say I'm also hopeful.
Thank you. And Thomas Lane.
Hi, Thomas Lane, Vice President for Student Life and Dean of Students at Kansas State, and I am optimistic.
Great, thank you. And we have Nick Whitney.
Hi, I'm Nick Whitney. I'm an architect with Anderson Knight Architects, and I would also say excited.
And Jeff Ebick.
Hi guys, I am Jeff Ebeck. I am currently a student here at K-State University studying finance and accounting, and my word would have to be excited.
Great, thank you. And we have Becky Wagner.
Hi, I'm Becky Wagner. I'm a physician here in Manhattan, and I go in the excited camp.
Great, thank you. And we have Greg Doring. Please correct me if I butcher your name.
Hi, everyone, and you are what everybody calls me. My name is Greg Deering. I am in the communications department at Kansas Farm Bureau, and I'm optimistic about this process.
Great. And we have Daphne McNelly.
Hi, everybody. I'm Daphne McNelly, and I am the executive administrator for Adabus, and I am too excited.
Great. And we have Caleb.
Hi, Caleb James, a senior business analyst, and I think my word would be interested.
Great. And we have Derek Richards.
Hi, I'm Derek Richards, broker of Alliance Realty, sell houses. My one word Chiefs, because there's nothing else going on this besides that.
Great, thank you. And Patricia?
Hi, I'm Patricia Satterley, and I'm a program consultant for KDHE, and my word would be hopeful.
Great. All right, let me go to my next screen here. Benjamin.
I'm Ben Burton. I work for SMH Consultants here locally, civil engineering firm, and real estate management and development as well. My word would be anxious.
Okay. Maureen Sheehan.
I am, excuse me, I'm Maureen Sheehan. I have been at K-State for a really long time now. My word, I'm gonna go off the rails here. My word is auspicious.
Okay. Cheryl.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Wiles. I have been here in Manhattan since 2006. I'm a single mom of 2 beautiful babies, and I work full-time at State Beauty Supply here in Manhattan. And my word was excited. I think I'm about the 4th person, but I think that means we're winning. So I'm excited.
Good, thank you. And Fanny.
Hi, my name is Fanny Fang. Pronouns are she, her. I'm a graduate student at Kansas State University and a local entrepreneur, and my word would be grateful.
Great, thank you. Lacey.
Hi, I'm Lacey Folsom. I was born and raised here. I'm a home health provider right now, working nights, and then during the day I do make readies for an apartment complex, and I'm also anxious but excited.
Great, thank you. We've got Anne.
Hi, my name's Anne Higley. I co-own Goblin Games with my husband, and I also work part-time at Manhattan Public Library.
Thank you.
And my word's eager.
Eager, great. And Janae, did I pronounce that right?
Yep, that's right. So I'm Janae McKinney. I work at Kansas Farm Bureau as a Young Farmers and Ranchers coordinator, and my word is excited as well.
Great. And Brett.
Sorry, Brett Seidel, I think that's what you said. I'm working development with the Kansas State University Foundation. My word would be energized.
Great. And Dominique.
My name is Dominique Hodges. Professionally, I work in the Department of Health in infectious disease. My word would be good.
Thank you. And Stacia.
Hi, my name is Stacia Mendeza. I am also a student at Kansas State, and I am studying marketing and political science. I think the word I would use would be enthusiastic.
Great, thank you. And Jessica Elmore.
Jessica Elmore. I'm the Associate Director of Diversity Programs for the K-State Alumni Association, and my word would be ready.
Great. And last but not least, I think here, Bo Harris. Oh wait, there's another.
Yeah, my name is Bo Harris. I'm the Director of Operations for No Stone Unturned Foundation, and I would say
say my word would be intrigued.
Okay, thanks, Bo. And then we've got Lee.
Sorry, I was having internet issues here just joining. Lee Modestit, do government affairs for the Kansas Insurance Department.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lee. And you want to share one word? I know you just joined us, maybe didn't hear the instructions. One word about what you're feeling tonight as we kick off this process.
Excited.
Great. All right, well, I didn't time that, but that feels like maybe a record for going through introductions. So I appreciate you all following the rules and being efficient so we can get on with our evening here. So I am going to attempt to share my screen here. And can everybody see that? Okay, hold up, sorry. 1 second. It's taking over my Zoom screen here. Okay, can everybody see that?
Not there.
Okay, there we go. Is it there now?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Sorry, it was a little laggy there. Okay. So first, I would like to just go through our agenda. I think Jared sent this out to you. But we are going to give you a process overview, a little bit to start to understand what we're going to be doing together over the next several months. We're going to talk a little bit about fostering engagement. This group is going to be really important in helping us make sure that the larger community knows that this is a choice to get involved and have their voice heard. So we're going to talk a little bit about the process for that and how you can be helpful. Cyril's going to give you just a quick preview of some of the environmental scan work that we've been doing. This is where we look at the community data, existing conditions, trends, and try to figure out kind of what's happening in Manhattan that can maybe inform the strategic plan. So she's going to give you a few highlights of that, and then we'll have a wrap up and next steps, and we have a little bit of homework assignment between this meeting and next meeting for you. Before we get started, this is a quote from the mayor and the city of Columbia, South Carolina, and we really we like this quote. That he recently said, communities should be platforms for human potential. And we just think that really captures what we're trying to do here. And I would encourage you to think about that and kind of keep that in the back of your head, this little nugget about the cities and communities that we live in and how they can be a platform for human potential as we go through this process. So, first off, what is a strategic plan? Some of you may be familiar with the term. Maybe you have a strategic plan for your own organization. But just so that we're all, speaking the same terms and kind of on the same page, we're going to go through, a definition here and a few elements of it so that we're all on the same page. So first of all, it's an opportunity to pause, take stock, and define the future. And it's typically memorialized in elements such as a vision, mission, values, goals, and then specific actions or recommendations. It's informed by community engagement and input, which is really important. And this one's really focused on creating a plan for the city government as an organization. And this is really unique. The city of Manhattan has never done a plan like this. There's been a lot of plans and studies and reports and things done over the years in the city, but this is specific to creating a plan for the city government as an organization, which has really never been done. And it also could, as part of the process, identify larger community opportunities. Again, while we're making a plan for city government, there may be some things that come up that are outside the city purview, but are still really important to the community. And so there may be some larger community partnership opportunities that come up as well. So the nomenclature of a strategic plan, I'm going to go through a few definitions here, just so that we can, and we'll work with these. We're going to work with each of these elements throughout the process. So you'll see this again, but just as a introductory here. And if you think of this as a pyramid, visually, the vision's at the top, and it's the highest level and therefore most general expression of, what a community wants for its future. And, you know, it should reflect the community's values, and it does set the tone for more specific recommendations. So the vision's really, you know, a statement, a few sentences that really sets up this aspiration for the community. And then the second sort of tier is the mission statement, right? So this is used by an organization to, you know, kind of explain its purpose for being. And so we'll be working about, and the city has an existing mission statement that we'll be looking at and maybe auditing a little bit, but we're going to be looking at the mission of the city. And then there's what we call a goal, which is really about outcomes, right? There's a desired outcome expressed in simple terms. And those goals then, you know, can be organized around some objectives that help organize action. So objective is a statement of intended direction. So it may kind of be, it's kind of in between the goal and the action, and it helps sort of direct the actions and organize. And then the action is really, you know, this is really the specific recommendation. And we like to think of an action as a project, policy, or program, something very specific. You're going to build something, you're going to create a new program, you're going to, you know, think about a different policy or a new policy. So these are very specific things that you can track, you can measure, and you can know if you're making progress on them. And so who's who in the process? Here you are, you know, in the middle here, the community committee. And, you know, your role is really helping us with this outreach to the larger community, helping us with the engagement, but you're also going to be providing ongoing input, feedback, and insight into the, you know, the content and the substantive part of the plan. Of course, the city commission's involved. We did have a retreat with them, and we're going to have touch points with them, and, you know, they are the decision-making body, and they'll be adopting the plan. And then the general public, I'm going to show a process diagram in a minute that talks about, you know, how they're going to get involved, but there is going to be opportunity for the general public to provide input, feedback, and insight. And then we're also going to do some targeted input with stakeholders, some key stakeholders in the community. And of course, the staff, the city staff, is going to be heavily involved. And besides project management, you know, Jared is our, you know, our main contact in the city manager's office, providing local knowledge, city organizational input. We also have a staff technical committee that I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute, but you know, that's a staff group that's going to help us through this process. And then, you know, we're the consultants, and we really here to facilitate and bring the process expertise to, you know, lead through this, lead you all in the community through this process. So this is a process timeline, and along the bottom here, you can see sort of the phases of the work. And here we are, the beginning of February, at the first community committee meeting. We're also going to be meeting with this staff technical committee that I mentioned soon in the next week or two. And this is all kind of part of the preparation phase. So we're sort of laying the foundation and starting some of the background work. And then, you know, March and April and May, these 3 months here are really where the bulk of the work's going to happen. We've got 2 rounds of public engagement plan, one towards the end of March and another round in May. And we're still, you know, shaping what that's going to look like. But we will be having some general public input there. And then we have 3 touch points with the community committee and the staff technical committee. At some point, probably maybe at this April meeting, but definitely at this May meeting, we may combine these 2, the staff technical committee and this group, into like a joint work session. Because by this point, we'll have some, hopefully some clear recommendations and some things that we might need to, you know, work through as a group, you know, with staff and the community's perspective. So we see some opportunities to come together and do some of that work. And then in June, you know, we're really targeting to have some, you know, fairly well, you know, put together detailed recommendations that can help inform this next budget season for the city, and really, you know, start to pull the draft plan together. So at this point, you know, we'll have, you know, most of the recommendations, and then we're really going to spend July, maybe part of August, just packaging and finalizing and, you know, making it look pretty and clear and have a nice deliverable that can be used as part of this process. So this is really how this lays out. It's a fairly it's a quick moving process. You can see we've got sort of 5 meetings planned with you all right now, but like I said, there may be some homework in between and a few other touch points, but this is the plan that we're gonna we're going to follow throughout this process. So I'm going to quickly go through, a few of these committees' responsibilities. Jared sent out, I believe, the job description when he sent out the link and some background information about this meeting. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this because you have all this, but you all really are officially representing the citizens in this planning process, and you're going to be providing guidance and direction to us on the planning team. And you're really going to act as spokespersons or ambassadors for the effort out into the community, helping us get people excited and interest to participate. And you're going to support the process and its events in various ways. And, we're hoping that, we can get to some in-person, meetings maybe later in the spring or summer, and that there'll be an opportunity to help out at those for this group. And these operating principles are also in that job description. One of the things I wanted to point out here is this co-chair idea. We would like to have two people, appoint two people to serve in this co-chair role. And so there's a little description in your job description about that, but they really just are to provide leadership for the group. And there may be some extra opportunities for them to have a little bit of more leadership in the process. So if you're interested in the co-chair position, or if you have any questions about it, feel free to reach out to Jared, let him know in the next week or so, because we would like to get those folks appointed so that you can, kind of start in on that role and be announced at the next meeting. And then I think the other thing that's really important is just this, regular attendance. This is like a quick process. This is, we've got these 5 meetings, and we really want to make sure that as much as you can, I know things come up, but as much as you can, try to be at all these meetings and really participate. A few meeting etiquette points, and we, I don't expect that we're going to have any issues here, but just to remind people that, this is a diverse group. You represent the diversity in Manhattan, and that there's going to be different opinions, and that's okay, and they should be respected, and they just really enrich, the conversation and ideas. And it's okay to challenge ideas and have debates. This is a safe space for that, but we want to obviously stay away from personal attacks. And listening to others, is a really important opportunity to learn from each other, and just sharing the space and help sure everybody has a chance to share their ideas. So just a few reminders there. You all seem like a great group, but wanted to get that out there. Okay, so fostering engagement. We're going to go through a few things, and then we're going to get into...
Sarah, could we just pause for a minute and see if anyone has any questions for you? This is Jamie Green, by the way, and I would just want to say as we jump in here that we know that many of you have taken a leap of faith, that you don't really know what this process is going to be like until you get on the other end of it. So we're really mindful of that. But if there's any questions or clarifications you need of Sarah, we just pause just for a minute here and take your questions. Otherwise, we'll move right into the next item.
Yep, good idea. Thanks, Jamie.
You're welcome. And that applies to any time during any of the meetings. Like if we were in a room together, we could see, your hands or whatever, but just use your digital hand here to get our attention. Anything?
Thank you for asking, Jamie. I have several questions. But I actually, for the sake of moving things along, am just jotting down notes. If there is a way that we could submit those questions to you later, if you would make sure to let us know where to do that, I would be happy to hold off until the end or to send them along.
No, thanks, Dominique. That's a great idea, and I think a suggestion for everyone, that if there are comments or questions that you don't feel like you need or want to put out there for everybody in the hour and a half we have together, I think if you send those to Jared, then Jared could consolidate those and we could push those back out.
Yep.
For the good of everyone. So thank you, Dominique.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Sarah, let's.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk more about how we're going to foster this engagement, and it's really important that we make sure that the folks in Manhattan know that this is a choice to get involved in this process. We can't make people or force people to get involved or come to a meeting or fill out a survey, but we can make sure that they know that that's an opportunity for them and that's a choice. So we want to spend some time talking about that. And, you know, we're new to Manhattan. We've been under contract for, I guess, about a month now, and we've been sort of drinking from the fire hose to learn about your community. And Jared's been really helpful in that, but you all are going to help us learn even more and help us sort of fine tune this engagement piece. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that and have some discussion. So first, how do we foster engagement? How do we get people interested and wanting to participate? So we like to think about this part of the work in two buckets or two parts. One is the publicity, and that's really about spreading the word and making sure that we're using all the different communication channels. We're going to come up with a communication strategy. So what are the ways in which people in Manhattan find out about stuff happening, you know, in the community? One of the things that we've done already in our first month here working is to develop a process brand. I meant to mention this at the very beginning of the PowerPoint because we had but I got the logo here as well. But we've named this Crossroads MHK, and the tagline is "Shape What Matters, Choose Our Path." And we've got, you know, the kind of process graphic here showing sort of supposed to be a little bit indicative of the Flint Hills, you know, the sunrise there, and then sort of this notion of paths and sort of choosing the path forward for the city. So this process branding will be something we'll use. I'm going to show you where we are with the draft website here in a little bit, but the color scheme, the name, some key messages around this is going to be really, you know, what helps sort of bind this process publicity campaign together. And then we're going to talk a little bit about communication strategy and all the different channels. And we want to hear, you know, from you all about that. And also thinking about media opportunities. You know, we are going to be working with the city's PIO to help us with this as well. But we want to understand how we can get the word out within the community. And the other really important aspect to this is outreach. And this is where you guys really this is really on you, because this is about, you know, developing messages and personal invitations. You know, all of you on this committee, we've got 35 people on this committee, and we're actually actively adding a few additional ones to kind of cover some more diversity. But you all have networks of networks, right? You have connections within the community, whether it's through your neighborhood groups or maybe where your kids go to school or work and other organizations that you know are involved in. So you have a lot of different tentacles, I guess, out into the community. So we really want to tap into that, and so you are going to help us with that. And so part of the outreach is really, you know, knowing our audience, knowing, you know, the different groups, developing those messages, and then those personal invitations. So I'm going to pause again. Jamie was a good reminder. I tend to be a taskmaster. I just drive through these PowerPoint slides. So I'm going to pause again. If you guys have any questions about this idea of publicity or outreach, or any questions about the logo, here's some examples here on the slide of some of the, you know, little, like this is a little project business card, a little postcard that we created using some of that branding from previous projects to give a sense of how this might how the process identity gets used. Any questions?
Hey, Sarah, I have a question about how this brand interacts with the Chamber's Region Reimagine process. Is this a brand that is completely separate from that initiative, or is that something that works in tandem with Region Reimagined?
Yeah, this is a unique brand. And Jared, feel free to jump in because you probably know more about that process than we do right now. But yeah, this is a unique brand for, you know, this project, this strategic plan process. And this was developed, we pulled a small group together. Jared invited a few of his staff, and we kind of had a brainstorm about, you know, from their perspective, really what this process was about and where they kind of saw the city. And just that's where we kind of, we did a little brainstorm and kind of came up with some ideas. And then we have a graphic designer on staff who worked up some options, you know, with names and the color scheme and the graphics. So it is supposed to be a standalone process for this citywide strategic plan.
Yeah, just to follow up with that a little bit, you know, they are separate processes, not to eliminate any of the others. You know, Region Reimagine, I believe, is still something that the Chamber is actively pursuing, and the city is, of course, a partner in that, was a partner throughout the process. Some of the outcomes, goals, may overlap in these plans, but this Crossroads MHK strategic plan is really centered around the city government, city services, how we, bring a budget to our city commission each year, use the city tax dollars and provide those programs, services, infrastructure projects, quality of life. But yeah, there may be some overlapping, but this is a separate process. One that, some of those groups will still be involved, like Sarah mentioned, with the stakeholders. I'm sure we'll be reaching out to the chamber during this process because a lot of these things that do overlap. You think of even Kansas State University and their Vision 2025, and a lot of planning has been going on in the community over the last few years, and this is the city's opportunity to create that vision and plan.
Thank you. Thanks for that question. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. So I mentioned as part of the publicity side of things here, the communication strategy. So this is really about making the process a household word. And, we'll be employing some, traditional media channels and trying to find some other, unique things that may be opportunities for us. But, print collateral, sometimes just the old fashioned, printing out little postcards or posters that we can put up places. Print advertising in newspapers, letters to the editor. That's one thing that, folks like yourself serving on this committee, writing in, talking about the process, getting people interested, is usually a good technique. We're going to explore any direct mail opportunities, email, newsletters, online social media, and we do have a project website. And then other things, like sometimes we can get a little advertisement into a utility bill insert or some other kind of community direct mail opportunity or other way to get the word out. Sometimes we use, community events. I know there probably isn't as much going on right now, so some of the stuff has to be sort of right-sized for the pandemic and what's kind of happening right now in our world. But we're going to try to take advantage of as many of these different media channels as possible. And I do want to pause for a second and show you all, I'm going to see if I can click this and see if it'll, of course I don't think it, can you all see that?
Yep.
Is the website up? Okay, great. So this is our project website. The city has a larger kind of engagement platform that they've established, and our page will be on this. So it's engagemhk.org/crossroads. And when you land here, we've got some initial information about the process. What is the process diagram we just went over, why people should get involved, who's involved, and we're working on a frequently asked questions document here. Dominique, who mentioned she had some questions and comments before, there's some of that questions that you all may have, may be good to add, other people might have them as well. So we're continue to sort of add to that FAQ document. And then as we start to get into having, events and public opportunities, we'll add a timeline where we can advertise different events and things here. So this is meant to be a landing page. We're also going to put a survey up on here as well. I don't think it's up here yet, but we're gonna have a survey link. We're gonna ask some initial questions to get people responding and engaging with the site. This is gonna be one way that we're gonna get input from folks. We'll be using the website, so there'll be a little kind of mini survey, we're calling it, that will be live. So this website is live. You can go there. We haven't started publicizing it yet. We'd love for you all to, as one of your homework assignments, is to head to the website and kind of look at it a little bit, click on stuff, make sure things are working. Click on the stay informed to sign up for the site, and then you can participate in the survey. So we'll be we can send this link out to you all, but it's engagemhk.org/crossroads. So we wanted to let you know that is going to be a hub for information and input.
Sarah?
Yeah.
If I may, one thing that you'll notice when you go to the site in the top right corner, you can register on the site. One of the cool things about this engagemhk.org platform is it allows individuals when they are actually engaging on the site, taking surveys, answering questions, to log in and sign in and fill out a little bit of information, provide their email so that these individuals and the public can get regular updates on when things are added to the site, when there's a new opportunity to engage. It also asks, some demographic questions like where you live in the community, neighborhood level information, just so we at the end of the process can have an understanding of how many people we reached. So when you get there, you can register and kind of be the first group to sign in and create an account, and then you can start commenting and taking the surveys throughout this 8-month process. And we'll be explaining that to the public too when we actually really go truly live with this site and send it out to folks.
Great, thanks, Jared. All right. So we're going to switch gears a little bit now and get into some group discussion. So I'm just going to introduce the 2 questions, and then I'm going to actually stop screen sharing so we can see each other better. But with that sort of background I just shared about the communications component and the outreach, like what messages do you think will motivate participation in this process? Like what do people need to hear that will really get them excited and want to participate? So thinking about the messages, and then what are the best tools for reaching people? I had that list of some of the traditional media, but what are the ways in which you find out about stuff in the community, and how do you think we should best use those different tools? So those are the 2 questions about messages and tools, and I am gonna stop sharing here. Should all be back here together. And if, this is, take a few seconds here to collect your thoughts, make a few notes if you want. And then whoever wants to jump in, you can, feel free to unmute yourself and just share your ideas. This is kind of an open forum time for us to listen and learn from you all a little bit.
Sarah, this is Becky Klingler. On the communications, Manhattan still has a very active radio network that serves the community both on AM and FM. Right. And so I think engaging a lot of people through that could be helpful.
Great, thank you. That's a great suggestion.
And Becky, I was just getting ready to say that very thing, that the radio is an excellent source for Manhattan.
Great.
Sarah, this is Thomas. Are there social media channels that are being looked at for the Crossroads brand, like Twitter accounts, Instagram, etc.?
Yeah, that's a good question, and maybe you all can help us with that a little bit. We used to set up specific. We will want to put a hashtag to it, but we would set up a separate standalone, let's say, Facebook page for projects, and we just found that it was a lot of work to build up the audience, especially for a project like this. This is kind of short. So what we've been moving to is to utilize existing channels. So the city social media, other community organizations that are willing to share posts and retweet and all that kind of stuff. So what we try to do is have an understanding of who's got the following besides the city page. I know that there's some online media sources here in Columbus that have large gathering, large audiences. And so we want to understand, like, from a social media standpoint, how are you getting your news about the community and trying to get those folks and those organizations to help us with that.
Makes sense. Thank you.
This is Linda again. If we could get short canned statements and descriptions of what's going on, then we can share that through newsletters and other organizations that we're involved in very easily. I know I have several that if I just had a little something, it would automatically go there.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, that's a good, I'm gonna take your suggestion here, and just a few things that I didn't maybe say there because they're a little bit downstream, but we will be putting together what we're calling a publicity toolkit for you all. So it's going to have the logo and like an elevator speech, little blurb you can put into a newsletter or an email. We'll have a PDF kind of invite for this first round of public engagement that you can attach to an email. We even have, church bulletin templates and things. So we can put together a lot of different pieces of the collateral to make it easy for you, that then you have. And if there's things that you're like, oh man, I could really use, a certain size little advertising because I can put it in a newsletter, we can help you. We can help with that. So be thinking of those things. But we've got sort of a stock publicity toolkit items that we'll be preparing for you all. But that's a great suggestion. We'll be making sure we get you what you need for that.
How have we captured the voice of the youth of the community in these processes?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We've got a couple K-State students who hopefully representing the college age perspective. And one of the things we talked about, is trying to get into maybe some of the high schools and getting, not so much getting them to join the committee. That's hard, but maybe going into a civics class or maybe there's a group of students through student government or something that we could have a focus group with. Or send out a survey that the high school or younger kids could even fill out. So we have to think a little bit more about that. If you guys have suggestions, let me know. But we've got we got a counselor in our group and a former teacher. So maybe there's some ideas where we can get the students involved, because I think we do want to make sure that we're reaching out and hearing, from the high schoolers and even younger as well.
Thanks.
Yeah, so I was thinking maybe we could possibly send we have a K-State Today email that gets sent out to about 22,000 students every morning. And that gives us probably a possibility outreach to send a survey out through that too.
Great, thank you.
Sarah, this is Fanny. I have a question for you, just to gain some more context.
Mm-hmm.
How will you identify the stakeholders that you'll approach for this project?
Yeah, well, Jared's helping us put together that list right now. And there are some of the maybe obvious ones like the chamber and administration at K-State. Jared's jump in here, maybe from the Fort Riley as well.
Yeah, the stakeholder idea it can be a broad one. When people think stakeholder, you do think of the usual suspects like we've mentioned, which are important: the chamber, Kansas State, Fort Riley, USD 383, Manhattan Area Technical College. The list kind of goes on in your mind, the hospital, but that isn't the entire community. And that's really where I'm looking for this group, and so are Jamie, Sarah, and Cyril, there are larger groups and populations that we don't hear about on a day-to-day basis, but make up our community. And they're the ones shopping in our districts, at the grocery store, that we walk by every day. So that's, the stakeholder idea is one of groups we know we need to reach out to. But this community group here, Fanny, everyone, I'm looking for those groups, those listservs that we're talking about that I don't know about, or other individuals in the city don't know about. But there's a way to reach those people, and that's really what I think the end goal is. So at the end of this, we can say that this isn't a plan that we just talk to the usual suspects, right? But that we reach as many people as we could that make up the community.
Yeah. Jared, I'm wondering if at some point when we get a list together, if we could maybe share it with this group and they could help identify any particular gaps. I think, I don't want to put words into Fanny's mouth, but she was curious about what we're doing, but might have some specific ideas about what we should do or who we should talk to.
You're spot on, Jamie. I was curious on if stakeholders have already been engaged with. There are 30, 35 of us here, and of course we have networks and they have networks, but if we can engage key stakeholders sooner and not just the usual types, but this is a community that has a lot of other communities, and so I think, not to assign everyone more homework because we're all busy, but I think it would be powerful to send you, Sarah, or Jared, whoever's appropriate, some of the organizations we're thinking of that you can engage early on, in addition to this group here and the technical committee with the city.
Yeah. And Fanny, it may be, and this is for everybody too, but it may be that depending upon how big this list comes, given the amount of time we have, that we may like break it into a couple of tiers, where one tier might be what we do, and then maybe, you know, we can get you like a questionnaire, and if you're having a meeting like Linda mentioned with one of her groups, she can ask them 3 critical questions, right? And we ask the same critical questions to everyone, put it all in the same database, but you know, we want to be inclusive, so let's figure out what we need to do, and then we'll figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I was gonna just suggest we oftentimes will put together what we call a meeting in a box, right? So it's materials, survey, whatever you need to then, whether that's something you're doing virtually or gathering together, you can gather that input and, you know, go out and we can cover a lot more ground that way if you all are helping with that. And then we can, again, it all feeds the same database and it all is considered as part of the process. So good questions. Okay.
Can one of you guys speak to the scope of what the planning is actually for? Are we talking about like road infrastructures or getting new businesses into town, or what exactly are we developing this plan for planning?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So this is really a plan for the city as its organization. So we're gonna be developing, like I mentioned, these, you know, the vision, the mission, the goals, but it's gonna be things that the city, you know, oversees, the city services, the city departments and things. Now that's not to say there might be some other things that come out of the process that are more community driven, maybe community partner, maybe they're about things that the city doesn't really have any control over, but they're still good things that this community wants to work on, and so there may be a component of that as well. But this is really focused on, you know, helping align the you know, what the community wants to see, that the city's focusing on, putting, like as Jared said, is, you know, putting budget towards and things, and aligning that with, you know, what the staff and what the city commission's expectations are for the city. So it's really getting everybody kind of pulling in the same direction.
Right. I think, you know, based on what Sarah just said, you know, there are no constraints, right? I mean, the city deals with, you know, so many aspects of the quality of life in Manhattan. So when we engage the public or the stakeholders, we are not going to say, tell us what you think about the future, but, you know, just keep it in this lane. It's going to be what is it we need to do to make Manhattan the best that it can possibly be, and figure out, you know, how that fits in or doesn't fit in with local government. And if it doesn't, are there other organizations or institutions who it's really their job to sort of deal with those kind of ideas?
Sarah, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so Sarah, I would say that the Manhattan Housing Authority has a newsletter that goes out to all of their properties. Also, they all have bulletin boards that I know the residents do read. I don't know if there's any incentives that will be a part of this, but I know that would be something of value. Our student ambassadors on campus, which are kind of our face for K-State, I think that their social media, they have strong followings that would be good for our college students. There is a couple of, I know there's a Japanese faculty staff community group. I can get that list of names. Also a Filipino, there's a strong population there. So those are some of those offshoot kind of listservs. I think that, people can correct me, but I think there's a Manhattan Insider where they tell you like all the construction and stuff that's happening. I really like reading that to get some of my information about what's happening in the area. Also the Monday Matters, I believe that's through the chamber as well. So still looking at some of those social newsletters that are happening. From my understanding, there's a strong Catholic connection in our Hispanic community. And so there might be some community programs through that can speak to that population until we get someone who is very active within the community. There's an international listserv through with the International Programs Unit. It goes to all of our international students and community members who sign up for that. So that would reach out to a lot of our other groups there as well. And I'll think of some other ones, but those are just a few.
I was going to say, is that all you got, Jessica?
Yeah. No, it's not, but.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Sarah, on the note, Jessica brought up a bunch of different ethnicities represented here in Manhattan, Kansas. Thank you, Jessica, for doing that. I think it would be very, very important to make sure that documents that are sent out are translated definitely in Spanish. There's a growing Chinese population here as well. So I think that could be really helpful. And so just being really mindful of the languages, of all the different languages. I think I think Dr. Jessica Elmore would be a good person to connect with to really identify what languages, because there's so many, so you can't cover all of that. But from my experience, just as a local entrepreneur who works with different ethnic groups every single day, those are the two that come to mind initially.
Great, thank you.
If I could just interject something, I should begin by saying that I really appreciate, Jamie, you mentioning the dedication of the Planning Next team and of course the city. Jared, I know you've shared as much with me as well, towards diversity. When we think about diversity, I think one of the things that even when all of the information got published that I saw missing was obviously making sure that we have a strong youth population, that we have racial diversity, but that we also have income and education diversity, which is something that's very, very much lacking in this current makeup. And so that leads me to another thing, which is the question that you originally asked, Sarah, was twofold. What should messaging look like? And then of course, what tools for communication? So when I think about messaging, I'm assuming that included in your PR toolkit that you mentioned, there's already things like, why should the community get engaged? How do they benefit from getting engaged? But one thing that may not already be included in that toolkit is really kind of socializing the historic lack of community-driven processes in Manhattan. And then, and I think that's a really important component, right? Because without socializing that and really working through that with community members, there's eroded trust, and that trust will not get rebuilt. So it will potentially lead to all of us working collectively to push our community forward in healthy ways. And then, there's a potential for it to fall flat on its face because the majority of the population doesn't feel that they can get behind it because they don't trust the intention of that. And specifically what I mean by that is, when I'm thinking, Jared, I know you've talked about stakeholders, and to quote you, you said the usual suspects. And I know that when I listened into the meeting on January 19th, you named folks like the Chamber and K-State. And it sounds like there's the intention to bring in additional types of stakeholders. But, one of the questions that I would have is, how is the input of the current stakeholders that have been listed, how is that weighted in comparison to, your planning team at Planning Next, this particular committee? Because I think what's been seen in the past is that those heavy hitters or those usual suspects have a lot of authority and power in the decision-making process. And I know that when the application for this committee went out, I know myself, and I'm sure many others in this committee, reached out to other folks and said, hey, is this something that you'd be interested in? It would really be great to have you represented. And often the feedback that I got really centered on feeling like this was potentially a performative space for the community. And to me, that is absolutely connected to trust. So I just want to put that out there, and I'll certainly send some of those things in the form of a question or questions to Jared. But I just wanted to put that on the table when we're thinking about messaging.
Yeah. If I could just comment on one part of what you said, Dominique, and that's about the weighting of who we hear from. This group right here is fundamental to that. Like the filter or placing value on what we've heard and who we've heard it from. We're going to go out there and we're going to learn and listen, but this all gets back to you before it makes its way to the commission in its work. So I want you all to be really comfortable with that idea, that it's not You know, we're not going to take what they said, take what you said, and then go off with Jared in a conference room somewhere and figure out what we really want to do. That's not how we operate. So it's tricky because we're gonna apply this big we here. We're gonna apply values to what we hear, right? And one of the important roles that all of you play is you know, you're not here to represent what Linda thinks or Lee thinks. You represent some portion of the community. So when you're at the table, we want you thinking bigger than your own self-interest. And so who you know, what you've experienced, everything that we're going to bring together, you've got to help us make sense of it.
Yep. And you know, one other thing just about the community, this community committee makeup is that I know Jared is working to try to, you know, get a few more folks, you know, onto the committee, and Commissioner Reddy, you know, helped reach out to some folks and trying to get some different perspectives. And, you know, some people may not have time to commit to, you know, a group like this, but that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from them. So we're trying to get a list of those folks. So if you're talking to people and you're like, hey, you know, get involved, and they're like, well, I can't, you know, I can't really commit to this, or I can't commit to or I can't make the public meeting. Like, we want to get that list together because we can do some follow-up focus groups and some other things to make sure that perspective is heard. And we've talked to Jared about that as well. So we're really trying to make sure this is, you know, right-sized and make sure that we can make it accessible for people in different ways.
Right. And at the fear of like over discussing this, I think the trust issue that you mentioned is really important. And one of the hardest things that we find, and I don't know Manhattan well enough to know if this exists here, but one of the hardest things for us to go into a community is to inherit the history and the culture and the behavior of what was done to who in the past, right? And so what we really need, we need to have people, as you say, trust the process, and they got to trust you that you're going to be representing them and, you know, be empathetic, you know, to them. But we can't do much about that except for ask people. Like, this is the most important game in town for the city right now, in terms of it's going to impact how resources are spent, capital wise, operating wise, policy wise. So, you know, this is really important. So I think you've mentioned, I think, Dominique, about the FAQs, and really a compelling why this is important and what benefit might you get out of it that's really on us right now to try to craft. All right. Thanks, Sarah.
Great. No, thank you. Thank you, Dominique. So Dominique kind of touched on the messages piece, and we've got a great list here of the tools. And as you think of things, you know, feel free to shoot ideas to Jared and he'll get them to us. But I would like to, you know, just spend a few minutes and hear more about the messages and things you think people are going to need to hear to get them kind of interested and excited and maybe willing to trust this process.
My first question is kind of what kind of information are you hoping to gain from the community? What sort of survey questions can the community expect to answer? Because I think if they have an idea of what the city's trying to capture, that might motivate them to get involved.
Okay.
Siri here. Let me know if
My watch is talking to me.
I don't know, Sarah, if you want to address these questions, or we're just collecting them, as many as we can to.
Yeah, I think given time constraints, I'd like to just collect them all, and then we will circle back. But I think that's a good point. I mean, what are we trying to do, and how does it, you know, affect them? What information are we trying to get? So we'll make sure we.
Right. And because the city's never really done this, you can't say, well, you remember in 2010 we did this thing, like, oh yeah, no, there's nothing like that to refer to, right? So it's got to describe something new.
But that's what people are going to say.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to say why this is different from what the city has done in the past.
Yeah.
There's a community survey that goes out every few years, I think, that's poorly responded to. And yeah, I think a lot of people that may have responded in the past would say, well, you know, I did all that information and then nothing happened. So we have to be able to say there's concrete reasons for doing this.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, when I think about the topics that people in this community get really energized around, they are very tactical, lived experience type of topics. I know we seem to talk around and around economic development in this community. We talk about the housing challenges that face broad sections of our community. We talk about food insecurity, food waste issues. We talk about a pretty significant lack of accessible active transportation infrastructure. So these are all topics that I think, as we've spoken about already, these are topics that people connect to in a very direct way. Whenever these, I think when people hear strategic plan, they kind of roll their eyes and they say, we did this with the Greater Manhattan Project, and then with Region Reimagine, and this plan and that plan, and we always get promised jobs, we get promised more accessible housing, we get it promised better food access, and what we get in 5 years is another plan or another strategy.
And higher taxes.
And higher taxes. So that's what the broad section of the community hears. But then we have to recognize that the status quo exists because it is working for those who hold power.
Yeah.
Or it would change.
Yeah.
And that community is, I think, one business owner told me, I'm not afraid of change, but I don't want to be the casualty of it.
Yeah.
And I think those are the two pieces that we have to motivate. We have to dislodge and we have to engage those people before this process can be successful.
Yeah. Josh, if I could, what you say really resonates. And I think that one aspect of this process that might be different than others is that they're going to be, the commissioners ask for priorities. They ask for some specific priorities that help feed into, the budgets that we've talked about right now. And, they're gonna, in my view, it's gonna be, the accountability for this is gonna be quite easy. Like you're gonna have recommendations and you're gonna see budget by budget whether or not, those matched up. And, we'd like to think there would be, but if people are concerned about not knowing if something happened, a year from now or 2 years or 3, there'll be a pretty good trail of, action or no action.
Jamie, if I can jump in, I think these points are good, and I think focusing on the applicability directly to the city's budget and our tax dollars will really resonate in the community. I think that will make this a different conversation than just another strategic plan. I think people really care about how the city's using resources and if it's directly impacting the people like them or people they know. And so it's an opportunity for this to be different than some of the conversations we've had before, to say, this is going to directly impact the tax structure.
Thanks, Brett. I mean, I think to the point that was made a little bit earlier, like we have to distinguish this from other things. And that's one way, what you just described about the fiscal issues, how we can distinguish that. I know that that's important, to council, the commissioners as well. So,
I'm kind of thinking of this just as we were going through this. For example, like recently we're looking at, will we open the pools? Will we be able to open all the pools? And part of the reason stated was, well, we don't have the staff with the technical knowledge to bring them back online after having been closed. And so I think that falls under, is this a city function? And how can we make sure that the city is ensuring that we always do have a person who's able to do that kind of work? I mean, we have 3 pools, and it's a big part of a summer activities around the community. We should not ever not have a person be able to do that on the city staff, that kind of thing. That's just recent.
Right. And that's a whole issue of priorities, right? I mean, that's really what we hope to help get at. I mean, I think Jared, like we've been under contract for about, 22 days or something like that. So we're really, working hard to get to understanding. But, my understanding, it's not an issue of the city figuring out how to spend its expanding and growing revenue base. The reality is that there are some market dynamics that are going on, not unique just to Manhattan, so they're just as, I think, concerned about, the fiscal health issue about where revenue is growing and coming from as they are about how to spend it. So we have to figure out, we have to look at both sides of that equation.
Jamie, to touch on something that you said in response to both Brett and Josh, you know, is maybe, again, this is just a thought, but maybe one way to distinguish between this particular initiative and other, you know, previous efforts would be, you know, you called it a trail, but really understanding how that trail, so to speak, will be made accessible and transparent to the public, right?
Oh, excellent.
It's really challenging, especially for a large portion of the population that is working class and underserved to even know how to tap into that information and to hold well, in this case it would be this committee and the city accountable, right? So I think that's one way that we could think about how to distinguish between this particular initiative and other previous efforts.
Yeah, no, I like the comment because you know, it is important to us that when we do something that, you know, something happens. I mean, I told Jared this at the very beginning, like, you know, our reputation is based in large part on what happens after we leave a project than it is during the project. So we tried to build in some, you know, clear markers for, you know, action and recommendations on how that gets reported on an annual basis with an annual report. Not an annual report necessarily on the city, but an annual report on strategic initiatives or the Crossroads, you know, annual report or something. But I think the idea, I mean, I like what feels like a bit of a challenge that you have offered here. It's like, how in our implementation document do we say you will be able to see that this has been funded or not funded, or, you know, a policy put in place for something. So we'll take the challenge.
I have to ask you all. I don't mind going out to the community and getting buy-in. I met with some pastors and community leaders earlier this week and spoke to them about this. Can you all give us some tangibles to go into the community with? Mainly, how has your involvement in other cities increased representation of underrepresented communities in those cities?
Yeah.
And then also, do you have some examples of how you helped increase budget efficiency in those cities? And then having that information would help me to go get buy-in in early stages from the community.
Yeah, that is, we can certainly help, Caleb. You know, one of those you know, investment company commercials is emerging in my head about, like, you know, future performance is not guaranteed based on past performance or something like that. So, but we can give you examples that are, you know, give or illustrate where, if there is a will, right? Because in so many, you know, of the work that we do, at some point, you know, we can run a great process. We can have a great committee like yourself. We can create a really attractive report, but at some point, there's got to be, you know, a conviction of the decision makers, you know, for something to happen. The leadership is really fundamental. But we can do exactly what you ask, give you all some things like, you know, things can be different. And I think you guys play a really critical role. I mean, nobody's ever heard of us. But you guys have joined this committee, and hopefully you're willing, for some of your own credibility, to get out there. And all that we're asking you or anybody at this point in the process is to, you know, support the process. We have no outcomes to support yet. So all that you're asking is, like, will you trust me, trust the process, and we'll get to outcomes. And then it's another question about, you know, will you believe in it?
Speaking to kind of more of a micro level, I think just in order to get people motivated, we have to make sure that the way that we're doing so is inclusive. Is there a way for people, if there are community discussions in areas, is there transportation for them to get there? Is there a way for people who may not have technology to give their input? I mean, can we create those means so that all voices are able to be heard on this and valued?
No, that's great, Daphne. And so I think, Sarah, we've got this in our notes to sort of, you know, work with Jared and figure out what that is. You probably, you know, can help us, you know, because, like, this first round of community engagement is likely to be, you know, a distance effort like this, and people will need a computer. So we have we were doing work in College Station we just finished it up, but had to finish it up in this context. But the city staff actually prepared paper surveys, and that we made it known through advertisements and outreach that if you wanted to participate, you could do it by on the computer like this, or you could get hard copies and mail those in. And there were multiple locations where you could go pick them up in a safe, non-contact way. We also, whether if maybe people don't have a computer, but if they had a smartphone, we optimize like all the engagement to a smartphone device, and they can, it may be harder, but they can actually do it pretty efficiently. But anyway, you can help us figure, when we start mapping this out, you can say, you forgot about this particular group, and then we'll want to have some ideas about how to get to them.
Okay, great. This is all really good, helpful information. If you guys, I want to be mindful of time here. We've got about 10 more minutes, and we've got quite a few slides to run through here at the end, and I want to make sure we have some time to do a little bit of wrap up. So if other thoughts come to you about the tools or the key messages to motivate folks, please send them to Jared. He will make sure that we get them, and we will, get them considered. And as we work through putting together this sort of publicity toolkit, we'll try to take into account these and get a nice package of stuff for you all to work with. So
Sarah, are you planning to flash through these slides, but then make them available to the group?
Yeah, we're going to send out this PowerPoint after the meeting as part of it. We're going to send a little wrap up email package, and this PowerPoint will be part of it. So we're gonna go quickly here, but okay. Oh shoot. Okay, everybody see my PowerPoint again? Okay. So we talked about communication channels and spreading the word, and we've touched on this outreach piece as well. So I think you guys have a good understanding, a working knowledge of it, but it's really about identifying the networks. We think about these from a civic standpoint, demographic standpoint, geography, where people live within the community. We talked about the messages, and then developing outreach responsibilities and targets. And that's going to be a little bit of your homework, is to think through, who do you have connections to, who are your networks, and who can you reach out to? And then it's about making the ask. So again, this demographic, geographic, and civic, we like to think of it as these overlapping circles, right? And so it's okay that, you may reach out to somebody and they hear about it from you because you live near them, but then they hear about it from somebody else through a civic organization. That's good, right? The overlap kind of builds up. And so we've really found that, this word of the mouth marketing, we call it, is the most effective way to bring people in, to the process. They may see a flyer, they may notice a little thing in the newspaper or hear a clip on the radio, but probably what's going to motivate them is one of you saying, hey, this is really important. This is your chance to, have a say in the future of the city. Let's get involved. There's a number of ways to do that. So there's a little bit of homework, and we will be sending you a follow-up email with all this information. So don't worry about trying to take all the notes down right now. But, throughout the month, over the next few weeks, we would like for you to gather virtually, and we're going to put together just some random small groups so that you guys can get to know each other a little bit outside of the larger group. We're not allowed to do kind of the breakout room thing here in the Zoom meeting, but we would love for you to kind of get to know each other a little bit. So we're going to just randomly kind of put you guys in groups, and we'll provide some contact information. So we'd love for you to gather virtually, Zoom or a conference call, and kind of work through some of these outreach questions together. If possible. So some of the things that we're going to ask you to think about are, who are the hard to reach groups in Manhattan? Some of you shared some of that tonight. We've got some ideas on that, but who are those hard to reach groups? And then thinking about, how we might reach them. And then thinking personally about your networks. What are 5 or 10 groups, organizations that you're connected to that you can help spread the word to and help outreach to? And then, share amongst yourselves, discuss, brainstorm, bounce ideas off each other about how you reach out to these groups. So, something that you may be doing with one of your groups might trigger something for somebody else, or say, oh yeah, I could do that. Or I could, get a little blurb in a newsletter, or maybe you guys are having meetings or virtual meetings that you can have a little plug. So maybe there's a place to, like they mentioned, the community bulletin boards, getting a flyer put up there or a poster. And then we're gonna give you an outreach, what we're calling an outreach commitment worksheet, where you can track the group's kind of fill this information out so that we're kind of aware and we're gathering everybody's group so we can see what the totality of what we're reaching. And we're just asking you to kind of email those worksheets into Jared, by the end of February. So, this is something that you can just do on your own. You can just do this, think about this and do this worksheet. But I think the idea that we will put you in these groups is just a chance for you guys to get to know each other a little bit and bounce some ideas off each other and kind of work together. So, okay, we're gonna switch gears here. I'm gonna ask Cyril to we have like 5 slides here. We're gonna try to do this really quickly here, but she's gonna give you a flavor of kind of some of the statistics that we're starting to pull together for the community that we're calling part of this environmental scan. So Cyril, I'm gonna go forward here.
Okay. So as Sarah mentioned, we're undertaking this environmental scan, which will cover both the community profile and the city as an internal organization. So what you're seeing here is the list of the topics we hope to cover by March, and we will have that final document ready by then. But for now, we're just going through the process, the research process, and we're hitting these topics as we go. So for the purposes of this presentation, I'll just touch on a couple of topics here and do some key highlights. So Manhattan's population is growing, but the growth rate has slowed down since 2010 compared to what it was from 2000 to 2010. However, if you look at it across Riley County, you're at par. And in fact, you're doing better than the state of Kansas, which is at 2% from the last 9 years. We also took a look at the fall enrollment at Kansas State University, and we looked at the trend over the 70 years. So as you can see, the last 10 years, enrollment has declined, but despite that, the population continues to steadily grow. And as you all may know, Manhattan is a young community. So right now, 44% of the population is between the ages of 20 and 34 years old, but the population between 65 and 74 years old is rapidly growing, and it grew 49% in the last 9 years. Most of your housing stock was built in the 1970s and onwards, but after 2010, it started to slow down, and by 2014, the housing stock was at 3%. So that's probably an indication that the city is reaching the residential build-out capacity, but it's also, we need to be cognizant about the older homes in the 1970s and whether or not maybe some of those existing homes need to be rehabilitated. So the population right now is predominantly white at 85%, but the diversity is growing. And as you can see in the last 9 years, the African American, Asian, 2 or more races, and the Hispanic and Latinx community continue to grow. What we hope to do is to compare the diversity with the student enrollment rates, just to see whether or not the student enrollment and the diversity affect what we're seeing here as reported by the census. The number of households considered families are also decreasing. So the total family households, families with children under 18 years old, and married couples have declined a little bit in the last 9 years. But the average size grew a little bit from 2.8 to 3 people. So I know we're running out of time here, but we wanted to post this question up for you guys. And we wanted the opportunity for you all to chime in and add to our list of other topics you think would be interested to know more about. I don't think we have time to discuss right now, but if you have anything that comes to mind, feel free to send those comments to Jared and we can collect those as we go through this environmental scan process.
Yeah, so thanks, Cheryl. I think we will share this, this PowerPoint with you and these topics, but there are other things that you're interested in knowing or think it would be helpful in making some decisions about the community to, let us know, send a note to Jared. And because again, we're building this body, it's an evolving body of work, and we're looking to sort of have this piece of the work, finalized towards the beginning of March, and we'll share that back out with the public and you all as sort of an underpinning for the plan.
Right. Maybe, and another way to think about what we're asking is, you know, at some point you're going to be making recommendations, or you're going to be thinking about other people that you want to help and making recommendations on their behalf. What would you need to know in order to make the best possible recommendations? What would you need to know in order to make the best possible recommendations for those things that you think are most important to you, or people that you think you want to help?
Yep. So real quick, we're on the last minute here, but we've just got one last slide, just some reminders here at the end. So, you know, we are targeting our next meeting date to be the week of March 1st. Jared will be sending out a wrap-up email with, I think we're going to try to use Doodle Poll to find sort of the best daytime work that works for the majority of people. So we're going to get that next meeting date set. Again, we mentioned the co-chairs. If you're interested in this, if you've got questions about that, please, you know, send an email to Jared. And we're asking for that, you know, maybe by Tuesday of this next week, just so that we can start working to pull that together. And then the homework that I know I went through that pretty quickly, but we will send you in that email follow-up instructions and the worksheets and materials you need to complete that by the end of the month. And then, you know, checking out the website URL, we'll send that to you as well. And like Jared said, go ahead and sign up and register and click around on the site. Again, the site's we're going to be adding more information as we go through it, but please check it out, test it out for us before we start kind of broadcasting it to the general public and sharing it widely.
Yeah. Sarah, can I just, before you close it, can I share something with the group? Yeah. I just wanted to say, you know, we talked about trust here a lot, and we know that many of you have probably figured out that you're going to have to trust us to help you with this process. And when Jared communicates with you the next time, if he's not done so already, like, I would ask him to send our website to you. I think, you know, one of the reasons that we're here is because Jared and his colleagues saw something in our qualifications we thought could be helpful. And one of the areas that we do a lot of work in is in university communities. I mentioned College Station and Texas A&M. We've been working the last 2 years in Tuscaloosa with the city and the university there. We've done a lot of work for the University of Georgia. We're working, Sarah just finished work in Davidson, North Carolina. I mean, we have a really significant recent experience in those types of communities. Now, you also have this other thing called Fort Riley, which you're not just a college town, but we have just finished the plan in Montgomery, Alabama, where Maxwell Air Force Base is, and in Dayton, where Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, you know, the largest single site employer in the state of Ohio, is located. So we have some experiences. We want you to be, you know, to be confident in us. We also want you to be able to ask us about, well, what happened in here, what happened, you know, there in the process. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you, that we do have some experience in places that, you know, share something similar. A place that's maybe not real similar, but not too far away, is Overland Park. And Sarah just led a major strategic planning effort in Overland Park for us. And then for the last, 8 years, we've had 3 different projects in Kansas City with the Mid-America Regional Commission. And we're just a group of 12. So we get around and really proud of the work, and really proud to be trying to help you here.
Yeah. Thanks, Jamie. I really appreciate your time and your thoughtful questions and comments. And, Jared is going to be sort of the point of contact, communicating with you all. But, if you send him things, he will make sure we get them as well. So we'll be communicating with you in between, the meetings. And Jared, do you have anything you want to say before we close out and let people go?
Not much. I'm meeting with Jamie, Sarah, and Cyril on a weekly basis, and we're emailing each other every day of the week. So that communication is there. When you guys reach out with questions, concerns, do you want to know more, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and let me know so I can get you those answers as quickly as possible. We'll be sending out the doodle poll, additional information about the upcoming meeting, homework, all those attachments. I've just been very pleased with this first community meeting, just hearing the questions that you have, The concerns about the process and the honesty that I'm hearing from this group helps me be very confident in the group that was selected and the process moving forward. So please let me know if you have any questions, and then we'll follow up with the slides and some of the requests that Jamie and Sarah had.
Yep.
It's real.
Great.
Looks like we owe you 3 minutes next meeting.
Yeah, I was
Sorry.
gonna say, we're a few minutes over. I appreciate everyone's patience. Great discussion tonight. Echo what Jared said about the honesty and just